So what this talk is fundamentally, it's got a provocative title, what the Amish can teach us about technology. And while we will talk about the Amish, it's also a very personal talk because I'm going to be sharing a little bit about my experience through a career so far that has been basically exclusively in and based around technology, and how my perspective of technology has changed, and how I found, that certain other people that I've met throughout my life have had different perspectives that have really changed mine. So with that, let's get this started.
Can you start now? Or
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect. Great. Everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Great. Two things I want to, I guess, say before I go any further. One is that I'm not Amish. I don't even particularly know Amish people very well, but I'm going to present what I've seen through some research and what I know that's inspired me. And the two is that I have an American background, although I live in Paris and I'm bicultural. A lot of what I may say might be particularly American or tied to my kind of the start of my life being mostly in America. And I'm very interested in the contrast that has with your own experiences. So I wanted to start with a thought experiment. We'll be going into some breakout rooms. I know I haven't said anything yet, and I'm already asking you to do something, but I think this sets up the rest of the talk nicely. So I want you to imagine that Harry Potter's world is now our world. This is a world where certain people have access to magic. It's about 1 in 300 people. And the powers are sometimes identified when you're young, and you go to a special school, or you learn to use it on your own. And now you find yourself as an adult with these kind of magical powers. It can be to fly, it can be to heal people, it can be to hurt people, it can be to repair things, it can be to do all kinds of things. So the questions I would like to ask you, and maybe I'll put these in the chat. What power would you want to have more than anything else? What would you do with that power? How would your day or your life be different if you had that power? And here's where it gets philosophical. Do wizards, I'm going to call them wizards, do wizards, because of their exceptional ability, have a moral responsibility to society? And if they do, what is that moral responsibility? So we're going to go into breakout rooms. I'm going to throw this in the chat. I would like us to put us into rooms of 2 people. And I think let's do 10 minutes, 5 minutes each. Please use a timer and keep track of time on your own. And I'll bring you back after 10 minutes. Let me know when everyone's back. It looks like we might all be back. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for participating in that. Those questions may have seemed a little strange, and I don't know if how far you got with them. Does anyone feel like sharing something maybe particular that they found either about their own inquiry in that or their partners? You can just unmute and shout it out.
If no one speaks, I will speak, at least in the group that I was.
Get us started, Antonio.
Okay, so it was cool. Although only 2 people talk, it's okay. They share the same opinion in the fact of what do they do with their power. So basically, it's to end the war, and at least one person said, and I agree partially with it, is that it's a moral obligation, or that we should share the ability to help the society. But the other person that talked said it's I don't know, do we? It was like this. So basically,
I think Daniel, like Antonio was saying, I think everybody's ideal at this moment in time is to end all wars, not just the one in Ukraine at the moment, but just basically all wars. And having that super ability or superpower to do that would be exceptional. And obviously, whether we will be able to share that gift of having that power, I think it's a moral duty, like Antonio was saying, to share that that power. In other words, And also, it also comes with cases, for instance, when it comes to curing certain diseases or incurable diseases like cancer, finding a cure and being able or having the ability to find a cure. And obviously, we have a moral obligation, not just a moral. I think it's important that we share that information with mankind.
Makes sense.
Okay, that's
Who
what I
else?
thought to say.
So in my group, we were talking about, it was a little bit philosophical in the beginning, but at the end, what we conclude is that the people that have some kind of ability, they have more moral responsibility, let's say, to apply it or not. And well, in the example that I give, when I was sharing the ability that I would like to have, it was ability to do forestation everywhere, because this would solve a lot of problems that we will face in the future. But
Sorry, maybe I didn't hear what that power was. Could you say it again?
do plant trees, let's say, do forestation.
Oh, forestation. I heard power
Forestation.
station. I said,
No, forestation. Yeah,
great.
It's an easy thing, but no one is really doing it. And it could solve, with some problems with the diseases, climate change.
I love that. That's a great power. Anyone else?
I can speak for my group. So we decide to have the same power. It's the healing power, and we think like the same way. We want to have the heal power to help everyone. Because for my experiences, I saw my mother with a lot of problems, health problems. So for me, healing is the best power we can have. And for us in my room, we agreed that we have that responsibility to help everyone with that power. That's it.
In
Okay.
our room, we focused a bit on two superpowers. One was the ability to write bug-free code, just magic. And the other was the ability to just materialize anything at any time, just poof, you want something, here you go. And the discussion was mainly about, should we sell that? Should it be something that was productized? Should I be more expensive because I can write bug-free code? Or should you open a store that you can buy anything for a certain amount of price? And the idea is, no, it's not that, but we do have some responsibility, social responsibility to help provide, because we can really help people in that case. You can solve problems without effort, without any cost to it. Yet there should be some way to try to limit this so that people don't just exploit it and abuse it and to have whatever they want. They should have what they need, and we should help each other in that case. I think it was that.
So thank you everyone for participating in that thought experiment. And with that, there's a how do you say this? There's this quote that I put on the screen here that has always just kind of sat with me. It's always somewhere in my head, in my thoughts. And at the risk of maybe unveiling this experiment as an amateur hour philosophical thought experiment, this is the key. That number I cited in the thought experiment, 1 in 300 people being able to use magic, that's not a number I pulled out of anywhere. That's the ratio of people who can write code, or who, there's a lot of different ways you can cut out technology, between electrical engineers and software engineers and people who actually, the designers that are designing the technologies, but it's not everyone who is building this. And an important theme in this conversation I want to, I guess, emphasize is not that technologists are the elite or better. It's just that technology is really powerful. It's like magic. And I think that you know, what you teach a doctor about the human body is really is a lot. You know, you teach how to save a life and you teach what kills a person. The doctor who's helping a patient hands-on, one-on-one, is very different than a doctor who's working on a drug that a lot of people are going to take. And as we've seen sometimes with drugs that have unintended side effects or addictions, when you start to take that knowledge at scale, it really changes, for me, the kind of level of responsibility that you have. And that's why I kind of see ourselves as modern day wizards, and that we have a responsibility because we have the ability to write, or we're marketing, we're designing, or we're building technology that is going to be used at scale multiple times a day, people around the world, depending on a project. And I think it really depends on how you came into your career, but that kind of sense of responsibility has been a turning point for me in my career, and I wanted to share that with you. We'll talk a little bit more about why in a bit. So I don't know how much everyone here knows about how GPS works. I just want to share this because it's something that made me kind of just absolutely jaw-dropping amount of respect for engineering and what technology can do. I think it's a pretty neutral technology. People are pretty happy with GPS. I think I shared with sound. No, I didn't. I'm resharing with sound. There we go. It's a very short video.
We take navigation for granted these days. GPS receivers guide airplanes, cars, and even cell phones. But did you know that the global positioning system is basically a big clock in space? There are 30 GPS satellites in orbit, and they just broadcast where they are and what time it is. All your phone GPS has to do is receive signals from 4 satellites, and it can triangulate its location in the 4 dimensions in which we live: 3 space and 1 time.
So does anyone know why what they just said is wrong? It's not that simple. But do you know why? Does someone know why? Okay, I'll give you a hint. It has, go ahead.
No idea.
No idea? It has to do with Einstein.
But actually, it's not. We take navigation for
Oh.
granted these days.
Thank you very much.
We take navigation where they are and what time it is. All your phone GPS has to do is receive signals from 4 satellites, and it can triangulate its location in the 4 dimensions in which we live: 3 space and 1 time. But actually, it's not that simple. In order for navigation to work, the satellites carry atomic clocks accurate to the nanosecond. Otherwise, your GPS receiver might tell you you're halfway across town when you're still in the driveway. And special relativity tells us that moving clocks run slow, while general relativity tells us that clocks run faster higher in a gravitational field. These effects don't quite cancel. General relativity wins out, and time indeed runs faster up in orbit with the satellites. But some of the engineers working on the first GPS satellite couldn't bring themselves to believe that their clock would actually run fast just from being higher up, so they sent it up uncorrected. Within minutes, it was off by enough to impair GPS navigation, and by the end of the day, GPS receivers would have been wrong by tens of kilometers. Needless to say, the engineers turned the correction back on, and these days, they trust general relativity. Oh, and one last thing. GPS is also a nuclear weapons detector. There are always at least 4 GPS satellites visible from any point on Earth, and because of this, any nuclear detonation will be seen by enough satellites to pinpoint exactly where and when it took place.
So when I heard that we had to build an atomic clock that would measure the electron orbits of a particular element, and then we had to detune that to run slower, and then package it up in something that was going to live for 12 years in space, exposed to solar radiation and micrometeorites and all that stuff. And we flew thousands of those up, launched them from a rocket into a perfect orbit, and had it run around the Earth, broadcasting its position in space that it had to keep track of, and the exact time down to the nanosecond to every, and we have 9 satellites at any given time covering a single area, so that your phone can pick which one it wants to do the math with. And we can use that to geolocalize ourselves to within a meter anywhere in an inhabited area. To me, that's it's such an inspiring use of technology. I don't know what else to say. It just, you know, and this wasn't every engineer in the world working on this. This was like 150 people, you know, kind of putting this together, a few subcontractors back in the 70s. And while they were at it, they built a nuclear weapon detection system into it just for fun. You know, I'm really inspired by that. And now I want to talk a little bit about kind of what I've done with my own technical interest. So the first part of my career was spent helping people, and helping people with technology has been what I've done basically since I was 9 or 10. And when I say that, I mean that here's a picture of me. I would get pulled out of my class in elementary school. So I'm 9 or 10, and teachers would call my teacher and say, hey, can you send Daniel over? We have a problem with our computer. And they would pull me out of class. I'd go fix the problem and I'd come back. So like I started doing IT help desk work at age 9 or 10 in my school. At age 11, I got the password to the computer lab. And then because I was a curious person, I tried that. And it turns out that it was the password to the entire school district's network. So I had admin access to every file system connected to the network of 33 schools. And I mean, you know, this is a lot of responsibility for someone who's 11 years old. I started poking around, and I remember I learned my lesson about snooping because I started clicking around and I read a love letter that one of the principals of the school had written to his secretary. I don't know if he ever printed it. I don't know if he ever sent it, but it was a love letter. And I'm 11 years old reading this, you know, dear Bertha, I want to be with you for the rest of my life. I'm going, okay, maybe I should stop snooping around because this is clearly not important to me. No, I never changed my grades. No, I never did anything illegal. No, I never changed any of my friends' grades that asked me, because there were a lot of them. But from a very young age, I kind of saw that things were all connected together, and that you could, you know, I would go get installers, I would go get files for teachers and things like that. And that was how I used that responsibility. 2009, well, actually 2007, I was 18 years old. I was a sysadmin for a small business. And I was in charge of their, you know, web server, their website, web server, their file systems, their field computers, and their email systems. And then 2 years later, I got really fed up with working for other people, and I started my own business. And that business was something I eventually ran for 9 years, and it was something I was really proud of at the time, because I surrounded myself with people that could create solutions and help people with whatever they wanted. So this is kind of the first opportunity for me to loop back to this sense of moral responsibility, because I made a choice back then, which was to make money. I grouped these people together that could create kind of these systems integration solutions for people. It was, you need a special server and a special network and a special sensor and relays and motors. We built automation systems, and you put all that together into a package. Well, I didn't even think about it. I said, well, I'd like to make more money, so I'm going to do more expensive, more complicated systems, and I'm going to build them bigger, and I'm going to build them faster, and I'm going to find kind of the highest end of the market. One of the things I did with my co-founder was build the first waterproof color touchscreen a remote control for home automation systems. It was an iPod Touch in a case, in a waterproof case, but no one had done it. It was 2009. No one had thought of that. And you had this kind of just little handheld device. You could control the lights and the sound and the temperature of the jacuzzi and all these other crazy things for a billionaire who bought Nicolas Cage's old house in Malibu. Some of the stuff I did in my call it like on my own free time, because I was interested in it, was I hacked Siri to control home automation systems. This is when it was in beta, iPhone 4. Someone had put out a project that forged the SSL certificates of Apple's Gazoni Siri servers, and you could capture the request of Apple saying, I don't understand your command, and inject your own response back to the phone. And you could obviously do a man in the middle thing where you parse the text and execute your own commands. And that was a lot of fun. I did things like controlling my garage door from my Pebble smartwatch. Again, this is a long time ago. This is almost 10 years or more ago. This was 2014, I think, was the Pebble thing. And eventually, this company I'd started and built these people around, we did huge apartment buildings and condo buildings, commercial real estate. We did, these very exclusive, very kind of private people. And we would just do these kind of huge, ridiculously expensive projects. This is one of the last ones we worked on. I mean, this is someone's bathroom. And you don't see it, but there are about 40 speakers in that room. And raise your hand if you know what Marble does to Wi-Fi. This is the entrance system. This is the guest bedroom. This is a living room, casual. This is this was a really proud project. You don't see it there, but if you look at the ground and you look at the ceiling, you'll notice that there's a thing that kind of matches up. Those are glass walls that descend into the ground in order to make the living room outside. This is not a render. This is an actual photo. We actually built this, and it's glass walls that go up and down to contain or to expose the living room and make it part of the outdoors. So this was kind of the arena I built myself up into. We were working for the richest, most powerful, most crazy projects, and the number of technical challenges you have to solve to do this in the built space may be foreign to you because, I don't know how much experience anyone here has with building technology into the real world, but things get really messy in 3D. You want to talk about buggy code? Talk about the fact that if you have two different metals touching, they corrode. So you have to make sure that none of your equipment that has any exposed copper or steel or anything like that touches anyone else's equipment on a job site that is, tens of thousands of meters squared. And this is a small project compared to the apartment buildings and the giant commercial real estate buildings that we did. So things get really messy. And I felt like I was the happiest person in the world because I was solving these really challenging technical problems. I was getting paid really well to do it. And I had a brilliant team with me to do this. And then it changed. So I call this the 2016 Fox News story because one of the things I tell people is that, we, for example, for doing audio video design, we went and got THX certified. So THX, if you've seen certain movies or if you've seen the logo before it's a set of standards for reproducing kind of the director's experience or the ultimate cinema experience. And you go to these classes and they teach you what are the ratios of things, how exactly should it sound, how do you treat the room so there's no echoes, so that everything sounds and looks perfect according to what the director wants. And when someone would ask us like, oh, hey, I want you to come into our home, for example, and we want you to put up these TVs and these speakers, we're deep into the engineering of it. We're picking these products hand by hand. We're measuring, we're doing, either 3D renders or actual blueprints where we, write things to scale. We go, okay, if you're sitting on the couch here and you're gonna have these three people at this, what are their viewing angles? Where are the windows? Where's the light? We're putting so much effort and care into making sure that these people can sit down at any time and watch and have what I thought was going to be kind of a cinema experience. I want them to watch Schindler's List. I want them to watch Avatar and cry like I did. I want them to watch any number of movies that are inspirational, that are human, that teach you something, that make you grow, that make you feel good, that make you connect. And I remember coming back, there were two incidents. One was with Fox News. I remember going to one of my closest clients' house, and I walked in and I just saw them watching Fox News on this TV. It's a TV that I'd picked the exact dimensions. I'd researched the models to make sure the colors were perfect. We'd worked to hide all the cables and make everything perfect so that you're just immersed in the experience. And I walk in and they're watching Fox News. I remember in that moment, just something just kind of clicked for me. I go, why am I working so hard to create an immersive experience if what they're going to immerse themselves in is toxic to society? My my intention in this talk is not to get political, but I will say that there are news organizations that want to report facts and news, and there are others that want to kind of cater to their audience. Everyone wants to cater to their audience, but there are people that have principles about the truth, and there are people that are basically a for-profit machine that masquerades as news. That's my opinion about Fox News. I don't want to really get into it, but when I saw that, it was in 2016, right, which was the Trump election year, and I remember struggling to maintain this very close relationship with the client and having all of the, hearing them talk about things that they heard from these kinds of places, and me going, wow, I worked so hard to make the sound crystal clear, surround, immersive, the right screen size, no reflections. And in fact, I built an instrument of propaganda. I mean, I didn't build the actual propaganda, but I'm building the mechanisms. I'm part of the supply chain of propaganda. Sure, you could say that that's kind of an extreme view of responsibility, but I don't know about you, but today's world, I think, could use some responsibility around some of these things, and not saying someone else's problem or I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't do that. I like to think not too much because it's suffocating, but I like to take a little bit of responsibility, my part of responsibility. So the second one, this is a much shorter story, is we had someone that bought a penthouse in LA, is this incredible room, and we installed these insanely huge TVs and this synchronized surround sound system. You had 2 full surround cinema systems in the same living room because that's how big it was. And I remember her asking, is it going to be done in the next 2 weeks because we're throwing a huge party for Trump's inauguration? Again, I don't want to make this political, but I realized that, again, the same calculations, the same attention to detail, the same care I put into programming all these, custom remotes so that someone could just hit a button and it would turn on perfectly, and all the sound would be at the right level, and all the drapes would go down and the lights would turn on perfectly to the right level. In fact, that was not being used to watch a movie to kind of connect to human culture. It was to celebrate Trump's inauguration. I go, okay, these people are using the technology that you're working hard to put together. They're using it in ways that you can't control. And that was a really important moment for me in my career. A couple things shifted for me, and I was never the same afterwards. So here's what I felt. I kind of want to stop and ask in the chat, in the reactions, has anyone felt these kinds of things before? About their career, or about maybe even looking at the world around them? I got Rodrigo nodding his head.
Users are stupid sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. If you ever want to be humbled.
Daniel, I suppose you feel in the same way as the man that invented the aspirin. He invented the aspirin for his father because his dad had a lot of pain. But for instance, there have also been bad people that benefited from that gain,
Mm-hmm.
So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's a really if you continue
it's
to
a
take
moral dilemma for you.
It's a moral dilemma, and if at one point I would just take too much responsibility for things, and that's too much weight. It's too much weight to hold on yourself.
There's only so much we can also do.
Yes. And on the same token, you can't just say, I don't care. It's not me. I think there is a happy medium to find. Does anyone see or feel any parallels with what they talked about in the wizard thought experiment that they want to share at this point? We don't have to, we can keep moving, but I want to open that up. All right, let's keep moving. Does anyone know the infinite scroll? When you're on Instagram, when you're on TikTok, when you're on whatever, dark UX, no stopping cues. Those are words. I think maybe it was Rita that was a UX designer. She's familiar with those. So there's a guy named Asa Raskin, and there's a guy who is, this guy's a total brilliant genius. He's, dual degree in math and physics. He's been working for his father, who was a UX designer since he was age 10. He's the one who invented infinite scroll. This guy could not care more about technology, he's total idealist about what technology should do or what it's capable of. And he invented infinite scroll. I think what I experienced is like this much of what he might have felt about inventing infinite scroll. And yet, if he hadn't done it, I don't know about you, but I am convinced that someone else would have at some point. He was the first to cross the finish line, but everyone was running the race to discover these things. And that's why I have a problem with people saying, you have to reject, you have to not do anything new or not think about things. No, it's important to be aware. For me, I want to be aware of these new things. I want to know about them. And then I want to decide. what I want to do with it. 200,000 lifetimes a day. That is a crazy number to think about for me. So here we're kind of getting to maybe the meat, philosophical meat of this talk, which is, what is the role of technology in society? Has anyone here heard the term standing on the shoulders of giants? It's something that I really like the metaphor of it. And it basically says that all the people that come before you are the giants. So those are the researchers, those are, the Jobs, the Gates, the Steve Wozniaks, the people that, IBM in the 60s and 70s. That's the people, Alan Turing before him. It's, Tesla, it's all the people that are kind of making these big leaps forward. And then we get to sit here and go, okay, this looks pretty cool. What can we do from up here? We're standing on the shoulders of these titans that have created the world of possibilities that is in front of us. Tim Berners-Lee for the internet. Gosh, what an invention. Okay. I have another thought experiment for us. I want to ask, how did 10 minutes feel last time? Did it feel like enough time? Did it feel like not enough time? Did it feel like too much time? Can you give me a quick couple shouts out? We're planning on doing the same thing. No objections? No objections. Okay.
Don't be shy, please. Just speak your mind.
Good.
Not just Daniel. If the other ones want to speak, it's a question for all of you. Okay, go Daniel, sorry.
So how many of you have friends that come with an app idea and say, hey, I have an app idea. Can you code this for me? And I'll give you 10%. Okay, I have an app idea. No, I have an invention for you. I want you to consider this. It's a magic dinner box. It's a machine that cooks meals. Oops, sorry. It's a machine that cooks meals just as tasty, just as healthy as made by hand. There's no question of organic, not organic, microwaved, GMO, like none of that. Just forget all those questions. It's exactly the way that you would have made it for yourself. Put it in there, and in some negligible amount of time, 5 minutes, poof, you have a full dinner that you would have made for yourself, maybe one plate at a time. So the question I have for you is this something that you want? Is this something you want for yourself? Why or why not? Is this good or bad for you personally? Is this something that you want for your family, for your friends, for your neighborhood, and for society at large? So let's do the breakout rooms again, Antonio, please.
Yep.
And I'm going to put these questions in the chat for us.
Okay, so.
Great, thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone, and thanks for that. I hope those questions were interesting for you. Does anyone want to share? Let's get 2-3 people to share maybe something they discovered unexpected. I want to hear what was unexpected that you didn't. You had your first impression of the idea of the invention and whether or not it would be good, and then you changed your mind. I want to hear from someone that changed their mind.
I can speak. I was with Rodrigo in the room, and in the beginning, the idea seems to be, wow, what a terrific idea. But at the end, you start wondering what will happen to the restaurants. And personally, and Rodrigo as well, we like to cook, so and we like to cook to the family as well. So at the end, it doesn't feel very great.
Good. Thank you so much. Anyone else? An unexpected change? Maybe even a similar one. Go ahead, Rita.
As we were discussing, when you joined back, Antonio made me kind of realize that even if it seemed like a great idea to possibly end the world hunger issue, it would be very possible that someone would take this chance and monetize it and totally turn it into a capitalist view and bring a great idea into making money instead of making good. So it kind of changed my mind.
We can simplify that and treat it like a microwave, in that you still have to put something in. Maybe you have to put the raw ingredients in, so it's not a magical solution that just creates food. And it's just a product you buy. So those may help that discussion, because that perspective is interesting. I suppose where we went with Nuno was this idea that it saves you time. But really, is it a waste of time to be cooking? And is that for yourself, for your family? What are you doing? Is it an act of love? Is it something you enjoy? Are you connecting with the food? Are you connecting and thinking about where the food comes from? Those are all questions that maybe I ask myself, and I'm sure most people want that. Lee, do you want to say something, or do you? Okay.
No, sorry, I was unmuted. Sure.
I know for me, I have an uncle who loves to cook, and he's studied with, he's not a professional cook, but he loves to cook. And coming from an American background where dinner was less important, even though we had family dinners together, cooking was not the same thing as this French uncle. And to see the love that he puts into cooking, the reason he does that is because he is kind of putting his effort into something, and it creates almost like a center of gravity that brings people together. So everyone in the family knows that he has worked hard to make this dinner, and they take it seriously, and they go, okay, now it's dinner time, and now we're all going to come together, and we're going to respect the effort that he's made, and we're going to sit around together. So he kind of manipulates us. He kind of manipulates us and into coming around for dinner, but the food is so good, you can't complain. I really, when I saw that, it changed the way that I felt around food preparation, because before that, I would, food was just give me calories and let me move on with my day. And so now I really enjoy cooking for myself and cooking for others. And I would personally, I don't think I would do this magic dinner idea. Maybe it's for disabled people that can't cook for themselves. You have to really, there's so many different hypotheticals. The point of this exercise is not to say magic dinner is bad or technology is bad. I hope that you'll see the importance of asking these questions at each of these scales, for myself, for my neighbor, for my friends, for my family, for society. How could it be abused? And if you remember, we talked about users earlier. Users will use things that you build in ways that you never expect, and you have to be careful what you build. Okay, like I said, we're running behind, so I'm unfortunately going to have to move on. So now let's talk about the Amish. This is Weird Al Yankovic, who made a song called Amish Paradise. It's a play on Gangster's Paradise. If you don't know it, it's very funny. I recommend you check it out. Like I said earlier, I am not an Amish person nor an expert in Amish. Far from that. But when I discovered how they operate, it was very interesting to me. Did I have anything to say about that? No. Okay, good. So here's what I would say about the Amish. So let's do this. So voluntary simplicity. they have a principle called voluntary simplicity, which means that they choose to live simply. They reduce the number of possessions they have, and they depend less on technology and services, and they spend as little money as possible. And I like this quote because I think most people think that the Amish either, have this kind of superstitious view towards technology. Maybe it's forbidden and they just can't because of their church, but it's actually not that. It's that they really evaluate whether or not a technology is helpful or hurtful to the community. That is their guiding principle. And when there's new technology that comes around, that is the conversation that is alive for them. Is this helpful or harmful to the community? And they make that decision based on that criteria. There you go. So here's a chart to show that it's not all Amish are one people. There's, some difference there. There's some nuance. So on the left, you have all the different sects or variants, the major denominations of Amish people. And across the top, you have different technologies like tractors, like mechanical cow milkers, refrigerators, toilets inside the house, chainsaws. So let's talk about toilets for a second, like toilets in the house. Okay, what are the arguments for and against that? We don't have the time to talk about it, but it's interesting to start to imagine the same conversation we had about the magic dinner device, and just take these things and put ourselves in those shoes. I enjoy it. This is Wikipedia, by the way. It's not a hidden chart. Very easy to find if you're curious. So I wanted to ask you, what do you think about wheelchairs? Do you think wheelchairs fit into the Amish definition of technology or not? Because the lack of technology is not meant to be a punishment. It's not meant to be a punishment. It's meant to be a respect for. They have a very particular religious aspect to it, which is that they want to live simply to honor their God. But it's not meant to be a punishment, and you can use technology if it is in the right way, meaning they can use cars or vans to transport if they're getting together for a big wedding or if they're going to visit a sick relative or something like that. But just to have a car to go to the store or to go to, let's say, social events outside the Amish community, they say, well, cars would make it easier for people to get away from this community and to disconnect from the community, to spend less time here. So no, we're not going to say that cars are a thing. It should be a special event that you rent, someone else drives you, and you have a really clear intended purpose for this. Again, I'm not trying to convert anyone to be an Amish. What I really like is that they have this question at the heart of their community: is what is this doing for us? And you know what? Infinite Scroll didn't affect the Amish community. They, their vote didn't get polluted by hyper-targeted ads, Cambridge Analytica. They've resisted a lot of the modern problems we have with technology because they made a choice that was different than we did around that. So you kind of have to respect them. Zuckerberg is everywhere except for in Amish communities. It's impressive. So yes, wheelchairs are allowed, electricity sometimes, but not in the house. Electricity is allowed for business purposes. They're really okay to use electricity if you need it for business. And interestingly enough, if they have to use electricity, they really like to have their own generators. So they buy diesel fuel or whatever else, solar panels, and they produce their own electricity. And they do that because they don't want to be interdependent. They don't want to be connected to the outside world. They deem that it can take them away from community. It can create distractions. They have carbon fiber bicycles. Really, really high quality kind of racing carbon fiber bikes. Why? Well, okay, maybe you could say that the bike, you can ride faster to go away from community. Again, I'm not an expert on the inside decision making, but I was surprised to learn that they don't have a problem to have really high quality bicycles because they deem that the bicycle is still just something that is a tool. You can go for bike rides together. You can go to the store. That's important. You can't just live without any means of transportation. And robotic welding machines. They have robotic welding machines. Not everybody, but there's I found a case study of an Amish businessman who still does his accounting by hand because he can't justify the need for a computer, but he can justify, in the eyes of the community, the need for a robotic welding machine. It's really interesting. And I can't emphasize enough that what's inspiring to me is that the decision, the question, the discernment is there for everything. And you know, I heard someone mention something about the ecology. We would not have the ecological crisis we do today if we all lived like the Amish. That's just a fact. That's math. So I respect them because they're not contributing to these global problems that we're all worried about. They don't have the same problems that a lot of modern people have with apps, addictions, kind of feeling disconnected from society. There's a whole host of symptoms that we all know, and they've resisted that through this kind of guiding principle of deciding what they want to bring into their life or not. So here are some of their principles that kind of apply or are relevant to the way that they make these decisions. So we talked about voluntary simplicity and careful deliberation. So this is an interesting one. Does everyone understand what this means? Lighter burdens, meaning don't take my weight away from me. Give me stronger muscles. And I really like that perspective because I feel like a lot of what, especially with the Silicon Valley and venture capital and apps for everything, a lot of what we're trying to do is take away pain for people, make people more comfortable, make things more convenient. But nobody, I mean, we're very rarely talking about making people better. I mean, yes and no. It's a very different type of product that says, let me take this away so you can stay weak and it doesn't affect you, versus let me make you stronger so that you can accept the responsibilities, the burdens that you have. And that even that small little change in perspective is really important. And I personally am much more interested in a world where we're trying to build each other up and make each other stronger so that we can confront the problems instead of just trying to take problems away. Do you remember the end of WALL-E? This is exactly the end of WALL-E. So everyone's in a chair drinking soft drinks, watching a screen, and they're on a cruise ship, and that's it. That's your life. That's your life now. I find it much more rewarding to think about something different. Okay, so this, I think Gen Z would call this FOMO. Something in our human brain really likes new things. Novelty is really interesting to us, and we want to know about it. We see someone else doing something, we go, oh, I want to do that too. That's normal. It's in our biology. It's why we're curious. It's why we innovate. But it's important to recognize, for me, I recognize this in my own kind of behavior, is just because it's new doesn't mean it's good. Make the decision. Ask yourself the question. Here are some Amish proverbs. Some sayings. I like this one a lot. I don't know if the peace of your mind translates as strongly as it does for an English native, but giving someone a piece of your mind often means that you're gonna be angry with them, or you're gonna kind of say like, hey man, let me tell you what I think. We never talk about giving someone a piece of your heart unless it's like true romantic love. But if you say like, oh, I gave my coworker a piece of my mind, everyone knows that you chewed them out or you were angry with them. If you say I gave my coworker a piece of my heart, people look at you really weird. So I'm asking the question, do the technological tools we have today help us give people a piece of our mind or a piece of our heart? We're building a lot of communication tools, but are we building tools that really connect people? Not just ideas and information like tweets and Twitter and whatever, but like, are we really helping people connect deeply in the way that we need as humans to feel satisfied?
On something like Facebook, we send likes and we send hearts and we send care messages and emojis, but that's not the focus. The focus is to say what I'm thinking. If you agree, send me a like.
Yeah, it became a popularity contest because if you want to talk about this in engineering terms, the resolution of the data transmission was not the same. You compressed human connection down to 1 bit, like or not. you know, you can't do it. Like what's, you know, you may know what Zoom's bandwidth is for HD video. It's, you know, it's 1.2 megabits per second to translate that. But like, what's the bandwidth of human emotion? You know, we know the bandwidth for encoding speech. You know, there's an Ogg Vorbis codec or MP3 at 128 kilobits per second. That'll do it. But like, what would it take to encode human emotion when you connect with someone? And can someone really feel you when your audio and your video is being compressed down to that? Can they feel you the same way? You know, latency. How does latency affect intimacy? These are, there are no answers. There's no solution to this yet, but I ask myself the question, when I'm connecting people, when I'm giving them an experience, am I giving them an entire experience or not? And it's very hard because I built a platform that does videos, that gives educational videos. And it's really hard to try to give someone a complete educational experience in a short amount of time on a smartphone. It's just very difficult. Okay. Being human is a privilege, not an excuse. This is more philosophical. It's not about technology, but I guess I would reframe that into saying being a developer or working on technology is a privilege, and not just, you know, another sprint, another stand-up meeting, another ticket, another bug. It's like, I'm trying to tie together everything I've been talking about with the wizards, the magic, with GPS being a miracle, with our work. Like, we are the people that are on the front line of developing the newest and most powerful part of human society, which is software. That's really, I guess, the core of what I'm saying. And I think that we do that, and we're so caught up in the frustration of writing buggy code, of meetings, of managers, of users that don't use your product correctly, that we forget that we're kind of playing with fire here. Now, I'm sure that not everyone here is working for, you know, Meta or, you know, doing really cutting edge stuff like the metaverse or like, you know, Neuralink. But I think we're all part of that ecosystem, and we're all responsible for having those kinds of conversations with people. That's what I'm trying to do here with all of you, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do it. So being a developer is a privilege and not an excuse to just kind of do whatever and get paid a lot of money for it. Because if you want to make money, this is a great way to do it. But you might end up where I did earlier. Okay. Here's the Q&A. We've arrived.
So
thank you, everyone. Really, thank you for your attention. Thank you for participation. And I can't wait to hear what you said. Also, we're at the 90-minute mark, and I know that we were supposed to having the discussion 30 minutes ago. So if you have to drop off, I really appreciate you staying till the end.